Rebecca Taylor, Liberal Democrat MEP for Yorkshire and the Humber. What is the problem in Calder Valley that you've been raising here in the European Parliament?
The problem is that a landowner on a place called Walshaw Moor, which is above Hebden Bridge in the Calder Valley, is breaking EU environmental law, and currently the agency responsible, the UK government agency Natural England, is not really doing its job properly.
When you say European law is being broken, what is it that's happening there that's wrong in your view, and how convinced are you that therefore European law is being broken?
Well, basically the land is protected under something called the EU Birds and Habitats Directive, which means certain types of land, including blanket bog, cannot be damaged and have to be protected. And what's happening is there is drainage channels being cut, and there is a lot of heather burning going on, which is degrading the blanket bog significantly.
I mean, what is it that you think that Natural England should be doing about that if it's land that's meant to be protected?
Well, yeah, they should be enforcing the European environmental legislation, basically. There was an agreement made with the landowner some years ago, and they were found to have committed 40 breaches of that agreement. Natural England started to prosecute the landowner, but then instead stopped the prosecution and came up with a new agreement. But the new agreement seems to permit some of the activities that were not permitted under the original agreement, which seems a little bit strange that you find someone not doing what they should, and then you say they can continue doing that.
And if the law isn't being upheld, what kind of message do you think that sends out, not only in Calder Valley, but in the wider area of Yorkshire and elsewhere in the UK even?
Well, yeah, the message being sent out is that you can breach environmental law and you'll get away with it, which is not brilliant. I mean, there's been an official response from the UK government, and quite frankly, it's not very convincing. It's rather inadequate, and it even admits that some of the damage caused will not be able to be restored, which is not good news. And it also says, amazingly, that the landowner is receiving compensation for the additional restrictions on land use, but the additional restrictions are caused by them not respecting the rules in the first place, which just seems a strange way to go about things.
And just returning to the actual, the bogland, the moorland, why is it so problematic to cut ditches into this land? What problems does it cause, not only for the environment, but also on the surrounding area?
Yeah, well, blanket bog has an important role to play in flood minimisation, and as someone who grew up in the Calder Valley, I grew up in Todmorden, we do have a problem of floods. The River Calder floods quite regularly. We have a lot of rain. It's the Pennines. And blanket bog holds a lot of water and releases it slowly. So it doesn't cause or prevent a flood, but it certainly can minimise. So obviously the less blanket bog or healthy blanket bog you have on the tops of the moors, the more water runoff you get when there's really heavy rain.
Now, you and also the RSPB have complained to the European Commission about this. You mentioned just now the response from the UK government, I should say. If that's not good enough, what action do you want to see now taken?
Well, I want to see the European Commission start infringement proceedings against the UK for not enforcing this legislation. There's actually been 2 complaints made, one by the RSPB, which focuses mainly on the bird life that live on such a habitat, and the other one is made by a local environmental campaign called Ban the Burn.
And together, those complaints, and you mentioned what they call out here infringement proceedings. If you can just explain, because that ultimately could lead to court cases and fines. Is that really a route that you'd like to see take place now?
Well, ideally it wouldn't be necessary, but unfortunately, this damage is continuing. And it is really bad news for the environment in the Calder Valley. So no, I wouldn't like to see infringement procedures. No one likes to have infringement procedures taken against them. But if the right action is not being taken to stop this damage and to repair it, then it may be the only option.
And is there any flexibility left now? This has been going on for some time. You've been taking this case up for almost since you started as an MEP.
Indeed, yeah.
So what options are left before you think that the Commission should resort to this kind of really last resort?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's been plenty of opportunities for Natural England to enforce the rules on the landowner, and this isn't happening. I mean, people in the Calder Valley who've been up there on Walshaw Moor tell me that the damage is continuing, so that's really not good news.